Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. First, this hour, families of the cadets killed in the AN-26 crash have started to receive their bodies for burial. At the Ministry of Defense, investigators decoded the flight recorders and are now modeling the course of events during the flight. The investigation board is considering all versions of accident. In particular, technical malfunction of the aircraft, pilot error and insufficient flight preparation. A terrorist attack is not ruled out either. As a part of the inquiry, all Antonov-made aircraft operated by the Ukrainian Armed Forces are also to be checked. AN-26 military training aircraft crashed near Kyiv, Kyiv region on September 25th. There were 27 people on board, cadets and officers of the Ivan Kozhedub National Air Force University. After a training flight, the board came in for a landing but fell and caught fire in 2 kilometers from the airfield. One cadet, Vyacheslav Zolotrevsky, miraculously survived. 19,000 hectares of forest have been destroyed, 32 settlements damaged, and half a thousand houses burned down. For the third day, rescuers have been fighting fires in the Luhansk region. 8 people died and 4 more went missing. The Prime Minister has left for the site. He spoke with the victims and assured that compensations are due next week. Details next.
Alexander wanders through the ruins and still cannot believe that his home has vanished. It burned down in half an hour. The man, along with his wife and 2 children, were sheltered by their friends in Severodonetsk. Now is just the 3rd day since the calamity. I'm still shocked, and every new day brings more and more realization of what happened. For this day, we had planned to visit the local market, to buy some light bulbs and other stuff. Now we are doing a list trying to remember every item lost in fire one by one. The Prime Minister promised to help the victims of the fire. This was stated by Denis Shmyhal during his trip to the Luhansk region. As soon as the losses are calculated, the reserve fund allocates the necessary sum, slightly more than $10,000 for each completely destroyed house. 7,000 will be dispersed to families of dead in fire. Those whose housing was destroyed partially will get almost $2,000. $700 is the amount of compensation for destroyed farming estate. The Prime Minister has inspected the affected areas flying around by helicopter. Around 19,000 hectares of forest have been damaged, including a number of residential areas. From 250 to 300 houses have been destroyed. As regards the cause of the fires, we have initiated 10 criminal proceedings. It's too early to talk about the reasons. There are several versions. Causes of the fire will be announced based on the results of the criminal study and criminal proceedings. Several investigative lines have been considered. Among them, there is a possibility of arson attack, criminal wrongdoing, specific results of the hurricane wind, resulting in tree fall down on the power transmission lines. The evacuated fire victims were brought overnight to one of the schools in Severodonetsk. Serhiy has nowhere to go, so he sleeps at school. He literally ran from the fire. The man has a burn on his face. Somebody has where to go to, but I did not. At the moment, I'm just waiting, as they promised to accommodate me in the dormitory. Overnight stay, 2-time meal, all facilities and medical help. By night, people have been moved from the school to a hostel. In total, 1,500 people have been evacuated across the region. Rescuers are still putting out fires. Aviation have been involved, 3 planes and 2 helicopters. According to preliminary estimates, the total area of fires makes almost 20,000 hectares. Meanwhile, a video of the arson has been posted on the internet. It shows a man setting fire to the grass. This happened not far from the contact line in the Luhansk region. Reported by Nick Starkov for UATV News.
Evidence regarding 104 former Crimean political prisoners, their relatives and lawyers has been sent to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The claim has been filed as a consequence of the large-scale mutual release of the detained people. interviews with former Kremlin prisoners were collected by the Center for Civil Liberties, Free Russian Foundation and Global Rights Compliance. This information will serve as the basis for an investigation by the International Criminal Court and bringing those responsible for political persecution to justice.
This is the first appeal, which is primarily based on first-hand information, and it has been drawn in a totally correct way. A team of Dutch lawyers who directly specialize in this kind of papers cooperated with us. As a matter of fact, about 100 pages were sent to the prosecutor's office last week. From now on, the evidence will be examined there.
Ukraine will not provide military assistance to either Azerbaijan or Armenia. This was stated by Volodymyr Zelensky. He called on the parties to sit down at the negotiating table and arrive at de-escalation of the conflict. At the same time, he noted Ukraine supports the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Azerbaijan.
When we frankly talk about the illegal annexation of Crimea, they always support our territorial integrity and the sovereignty of Ukraine. So in this regard, we support each other. I believe that there cannot be any frozen conflict, because we are defending Ukraine, because we are now at war in Donbass, because it does not matter whether it will be a sabotage or a provocation if an explosion happens 30 years after the war.
Azerbaijani General Prosecution Office reported numbers of civilian losses in Nagorno-Karabakh. Azerbaijani's civilian death toll has risen to 19, with 55 wounded, the office stated, while the casualties among country's armed forces remain kept secret. See more in our next story.
Clashes between Azerbaijan and Armenia over the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region have been going on for 6 days. During the past day, several more journalists got injured in the military operations zone. Alan Kaval, a reporter of the Le Monde newspaper, who sustained severe injuries yesterday, is in critical condition.
His internal organs have not been injured. There is a traumatic fracture in his right fibula caused by shrapnel. So the doctors had to immobilize his leg. Also, the reporter has sustained numerous lacerations. Doctors managed to bring him out of a traumatic shock. Now his condition is stable, and in view of the traumas he has suffered, the patient is in a critical but stable condition.
Apart from journalists, the violent conflict also caused lots of suffering among children. Even women head to the front lines. Almost 400 Yerevan military volunteers have enrolled in the army forces.
When the war started, we tried to contact the Ministry of Defense to learn how we can get to the far front, and I'm happy that we had a chance to be part of the army. I'm sure the army needs women.
First deployments have already been sent to the front line. There were 98 women there. Many women asked to be recruited and sent to the front line, so we decided to do this. Almost 400 recruited women are going to join the army. At the moment, we are waiting for the ministry's order to form up the next detachment.
More and more countries are being involved in the conflict over the territorial dispute between two Caucasian nations. Reports on foreign mercenaries backing from both sides show up increasingly. Reportedly, Syrian mercenaries interviewed before deployment in the region have been pledged about $1,500 reward for a month of service. In an interview for CNN, a recruit acknowledged that he headed to the front line for the sake of money.
Nous disposons d'informations.
Today we've got some intelligence data indicating that Syrian fighters, jihadist fighters, left the fighting scene in Syria and went through Gaziantep to join Nagorno-Karabakh. It is a very grave new element and a game changer.
The EU countries restated their calls to Baku and Yerevan to halt the clash in the region. Armenia announced its readiness to negotiate towards a ceasefire with the mediation of the OSCE Minsk group, founded back in the 1990s to regulate events in Nagorno-Karabakh. However, for 28 years of its existence so far, this has not helped to resolve the crisis. Reported by Nick Starkov, Inna Kosinska for UATV News.
Life of young people in Donbass on both sides of the contact line. A private multimedia show contact line has been held in Kyiv. The performance was staged within a social project run by a public organization, I Do. Our correspondent witnessed the premiere.
Меня зовут Андрей. Мне нельзя жаловаться, доносить или что-то просить.
Меня зовут Эсмира. Наш подвал не обустроен, чтобы в нем находились люди.
10 young people whose lives drastically changed because of the war. 10 personal stories describing what they went through in 2014.
Родители готовят еду на праздник. Но утром нас будет не будильник, а звуки войны.
Отец остается в Луганске и не смог больше выехать оттуда. Папа, я на тебя злилась и держала обиду долгие годы. Но теперь я понимаю, что ты ничего не смог сделать тогда.
The actors admit that it was difficult for them to return to those memories years later.
The purpose of our story is to reveal the truth so that first I could recollect the feeling as some of the emotions that I had experienced with time almost got extinguished from my memory. I nearly burst into tears, since these stories have made me feel the same as in 2014.
Instead of a classic stage, the action takes place in a glass labyrinth. Here, the actors tell the truth in order to get out of it.
In these labyrinths, the maze of war, the home of many terror, you meet your past. In order to escape, you need to be honest.
The performance combined documentary performance and multimedia. Viewers had the possibility to influence the ongoing events by voting. The performance will be showed at the Ukrainian House in Kyiv on October the 2nd and the 3rd. The playwright and the actors hope that later it will become available for viewers in other cities and countries. Reported by Vadim Kramer, UATV News.
This car was the subject of national pride and fun at the same time. Also, people cultivated anecdotes about it. 60 years ago, a legendary ZAZ 965, which is better known as a Zaporozhets, left the assembly line of the Zaporizhzhia automobile plant. Our correspondents know how the ZAZ 965's birthday was celebrated.
Gentlemen, start the engines.
Brutal blacks.
Here you can see welding. It has been lengthened here and extended there. The arcs have been repaired. The hood is opened in a funny way.
And soft pink.
This color is positive. Everyone likes it. I like it too, and it is the main thing.
Dozens of owners of ZAZ 965 line up in a column for an anniversary car rally. It was in the fall of 1960 that the legendary ZAZ 965 left the assembly line of the Zaporizhzhia automobile plant. Despite being a laughingstock among our citizens, the clumsy hunchback at the same time won the hearts of millions and became a cult car.
We love it because it is such a tiny, beautiful machine. And what does this mean, ridiculous? It's very pretty, absolutely.
The price of the car at that time was about 1,800 rubles. But it was not enough to save up enough money to buy it. People had to stay in line for several years. And for a domestic customer, the export version, which was produced for the European market as Yalta brand, was not available at all.
The Yalta model can be differentiated by the presence of a steering wheel with such a ring, exterior mirrors and additional moldings. Cars not aimed for export featured less details.
Despite his old age, Fiat's twin, and it was Fiat that had been taken as a model for our domestically produced car, caused a lot of positive emotions on the streets of Zaporizhzhia on its anniversary. A big cake featuring the inscription ZAZ 965 has proven to be a nice reward for those who celebrated the anniversary. Reported by Vadim Kramer, UATV News.
That was our final story this hour. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter pages.